first question was about the current capacity of childcare in Peterborough. There are over 2,700 children on the wait list for childcare in Peterborough and only 58 licensed programs. We asked, what would your plan be to increase spaces for early childhood education?
Well, first of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity to have this conversation with you. I myself had the opportunity to have my kids in childcare. They went to Trent Childcare 20-something years ago, almost 30 years ago. And in fact, Susan, who I believe was part of the email thread for setting this up, was one of the childcare workers that worked with my kids, Piper and Elia. And even then, 30 years ago, I was incredibly lucky to get a spot. I had no idea, like probably most people who haven't had kids. When I had my kids, I had no idea how hard it was going to be to get my kids into childcare. And I was incredibly lucky that there were spots reserved at Trent Childcare for students. And I was myself a young student. I was 21 when I was putting Piper into childcare. And so I got in very quickly. But even then I was aware of how lucky that was. And now I know people are having to put themselves on wait lists before they even have children, it seems, in the hopes that by the time their kids are ready to go to childcare, there's a spot for them. And it's a ridiculous dilemma that you can't have a job until you've got childcare, and you can't get childcare until you have a job, because childcare is so expensive. And so before I know I haven't actually addressed your question yet, but can I just flip you a quick question, which is, can you tell me roughly how much is an infant childcare spot? How much does that cost on average right now?
Whew, that is a good question.
I don't mean to put you on the spot. I can just tell you that even 30 years ago, it was $42 a day.
Yeah, I think it's around $60 a day, if I'm not mistaken.
And I had the good fortune to be able to access some bursary money through the city, which I don't think exists anymore, that subsidized my expenses. Otherwise, there's no way that my kids could have been in childcare. I was a student. My partner didn't have a job when we first started there. And so, being able to have my kids in childcare allowed me to finish my degree and get a job. Yeah. And had I not had that, I can't even imagine what it would have meant for my family. The stat that I've seen is that there are only enough childcare spots in Ontario for 1 in 4 kids, and that's clearly unacceptable. So, clearly we need more spots. And one of the big barriers, aside from just facilities themselves, we need workers, and currently childcare workers are grossly underpaid. It's a female-dominated workforce, and the discrimination is real. As a teacher, I'm very much aware of the discrimination in wages depending on the age of the child that you're working with. So childcare workers get the brunt of it. Elementary teachers make less than high school teachers, or at least historically they did. We make less than post-secondary. It's a bizarre system, because we know that those early years are so fundamental to kids' development and welfare. I recall when briefly my son was in a childcare in Toronto, and I remember the childcare workers reporting to me that they felt that Piper's scissors skills were not where they would have liked them to be. And I remember thinking, I'm supposed to give my kids scissors? I had no idea. And I remember it was childcare workers who said, hey, have you had a hearing test yet? And I thought, oh, it never even occurred to me to get a hearing test for my kids. Okay. So, aside from just the amazing work that childcare workers do with kids developing their skills, they're also that first line of not diagnosis, but the first line of like giving parents an idea what to expect at different ages and stages, and reflecting on where their kids are so that they can nip issues in the bud and get the supports in place so that kids can be, can really meet their full potential. So the first thing that the NDP is committed to doing is to increase the wages of childcare workers. That's number one. And that's going to help retain really good quality workers who are well educated and are happy in their jobs. We are just even things like having dental and pharmacare and mental health supports woven into the healthcare system. That's also going to make the wages of childcare workers go farther, because those really important pieces of healthcare, and those are, dental care is healthcare, mental health care is healthcare. Taking those off the shoulders of childcare workers is really important. We also need to build more spaces. In childcare, we need more facilities. So all of these are things that frankly, the Liberals had 15 years to make investments in childcare, and they actually went so far as to defeat a motion that the NDP proposed, which would have directed any new provincial childcare funding to go exclusively to not-for-profit care facilities, care programs. And the Liberals defeated that motion. Imagine where we would have been if we had been able to make real investments in quality public childcare. So huge. So we also are really, we're also in favor of the $10 a day childcare program. We've seen this happen successfully in other provinces like Quebec. And we know that our childcare workers also themselves have children, and they need the care. They don't have, any special access to these spots either. So we need to mobilize our workforce. We know that 77% of Ontario women with children below the age of 13 are working. Only 77%. That's compared to 84% of male identified workers. So there's a whole untapped workforce that is unable to, join the land of the income earning, because they are themselves lacking quality childcare. It's a negative spiral that we just need to address. So, and I think I'll end. I know I'm terrible at overly long answers, but I want to also mention, because I apologize, that's my dog alarm, and there must be somebody walking by the house.
Okay, I'm looking at my cat over here, and she really wants to come and walk on my computer like she regularly does. So same tension. Okay.
I think that key to the NDP's platform, woven throughout it, is an eye to equity, because for all of these stats and numbers, when we look at the number of cents to the dollar that female identified workers make compared to male identified workers, same with workforce numbers, all of that is considerably worse. It's disproportionately worse for people of color, people with disabilities, Black, Indigenous, people from northern and rural communities. All of these equity pieces are always fundamental to address, because we know that we need to make improvements that bring everyone along, not just a few.
Our second question was about the workforce crisis in early childhood education. Currently, programs all over Ontario are struggling to find staff, and in particular, qualified staff. We asked how they would address this staffing crisis in childcare.
The increasing minimum wage is critical. I mean, based on the numbers that you just said, childcare workers are making less than what the NDP considers a minimum wage. And as far as I'm concerned, childcare workers should never be making minimum wage. They are skilled workers, and they are taking care of our treasures. And so that work needs to be recognized with the value that it has. So what we know in the labor world, and I'm a strong labor activist and union supporter, we know that when the minimum wage is raised, it actually floats all the boats. So people who normally make more than minimum wage are going to get an increase as well, because there's that there's economic pressure to compensate at a level commensurate to skills and education. So raising the minimum wage up to $20 an hour is going to almost certainly raise the wages of all workers. We also really need to be encouraging union participation. There was a time when the majority of workers belonged to a union, which provided them protections, job protection, health and safety protections, and good wages and benefits. And sadly, in the last number of decades, that those numbers are dwindling. And that has a really negative societal effect, that it becomes a bit of an us versus them, where people who are not unionized are envious of the good conditions of union workers. In fact, we know that whenever union workers fight for better improvements, they actually benefit everybody. So, for example, the 40-hour minimum 40-hour work week came from unions. The having weekends, having holidays that are paid, having access to health and safety training and health and safety protections, all in a variety of ways. Unions have improved everybody's working conditions, and now things that unions fought for are taken totally for granted by everybody, as they should be. And so what I would really like to see, and what the NDP is committed to, is increasing union participation, making it a lot easier for workers to organize. All it will take, when the NDP is the government, all it will take is 55% of the membership signing a union card, and they will be able to form a union. And we will also support them in bargaining their first fair contract. So that's huge. And we're also, the other piece of that I would point out is, we are committed to introducing a benefits program that will allow people to port their benefits from employer to employer, which will mean that people who are in jobs that they don't like, either because the conditions are poor or they don't like because it's just simply not a good fit for them, will not be stuck staying in a bad job because they need the benefits. They'll be able to, they'll have flexibility, and the word that I'm thinking of is escaping me right now, but they'll be able to move from job to job, which is ultimately better for employers and employees, so that people are finding the right fit. The last thing that we want is somebody in childcare who is not, who doesn't like it or isn't great at it, same as in teaching, same as in really any profession. We want every worker to find the passions and the skills that really, or the jobs that really fit their skills and passions. So, I mean, I just am blown away by the idea of early childhood educators, our ECEs. We call in teaching, in the education world, we call them DECEs. So I designated early childhood educators. So I stumble over your acronym, but I believe that it's the same training. Speaking of training, we also need to increase the number of programs that are available to get that training. I am hearing, even I come from education, from elementary school, and I'm hearing that many colleges are no longer offering ECE training or EA training, or any of these programs that work with young children. And so, I mean, that's a fundamental flaw in the system. How on earth are we going to have enough childcare workers if people can't get the training that they need? So better pay, better working conditions, more access to training. These are all things, and affordable childcare and available spaces for their own kids. All of those things will work together, all with an eye to equity and representation, so that nobody is left behind with these initiatives.
That's great, Jen. Thank you for your responses. You've covered a lot today, for sure.
It's really important to me, and I will just say, as a teacher, we really depend on you. Child, I don't know if you're all RECEs, so I'm deferring to childcare workers in the hopes that that encompasses you all. But we really rely on you because you're giving the kids the fundamental skills that they need to be successful in school. And we're certainly seeing so many kids who don't have that foundation, and they really struggle when they get to school. So thank you for all the work that you do. And to everyone out there, you are absolutely valued, and by me and by the NDP, and your work should be recognized for its importance in our society. Let's take care of you. That's my goal. Let's take care of you, because you take care of our little treasures.
Awesome. Yes, we're all advocates for early childhood education over here. Those are my questions for today. If you had anything else you want to say, you've covered a lot today. But yeah, I wanted to thank you again. And
yeah. Oh, I'll say one last thing, actually. One thing that I was thinking about in anticipation for this just a few minutes ago, I wanted to give a big thank you to Trent Childcare, who took such lovely care of my little children. And I guess the point I want to make here is, when I think back to Trent Childcare, certainly the facility was first class, and that was fabulous, but that's not what I remember. What I remember is that everybody who worked in that building was passionate about what they did, and they were excellent, right from the director of the childcare through the childcare workers, and even the cook. I think her name was Rosemary, or maybe Rose. And every single one of those people loved being in that space, loved the kids loved them. And the work that they did with the kids was just exceptional. So thank you very much, Trent Childcare, and by extension, all of you in the childcare world.
It's truly what we need, just people passionate about childcare.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see it in you as well.
I do love babies. I'm pro baby.
Noted.
Okay.
Okay, Jen, thank you again. So that's all I have for you today. So.
Okay. Have a great day.
You too. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.